Hello all, welcome back to the BioRocks channel. In this video today, I'm going to teach you about the breathing mechanisms, that is going to be the inhalation and exhalation process, and we are going to even learn about the membranes of the lungs. Okay, so without any delay, I'll be starting my video by sharing my screen with you all. So for that, let me choose my whiteboard. Okay, yeah, so today's topic that I'm going to deal is going to be about the mechanism of the breathing. So before I start, so the topic that I'm dealing today is going to be about the mechanism of breathing. Okay, so this actually breathing involves two processes. One is going to be letting the air in, which is being called as the inhalation process. Okay, so we are letting the air in, letting the air in to the lungs through the conducting airways. And the next process is going to be the exhalation process, where you are going to let out the air out of the lungs through the conducting airways. Okay, before I explain you the inhalation and exhalation, children, it becomes must for us to now learn about the membranes and the chest wall. Okay, in the previous video I have taught you that your chest wall, that is the chest wall or the thoracic wall is built up built up by the rib cage, right? The rib cage, along with its the internal as well as the external, internal and the external intercostal intercostal muscles. Okay, these togetherly are going to form your chest wall or the thoracic wall, which you know it. Now what I'll do is I'll just introduce you with the membranes of the lung. Okay, the membranes which are wrapping up the lung are being called as the pleura. Okay, pleura. To look at pleura anatomically, or to look at it actually, the pleura is a single membrane, but it folds over it. Okay, it folds on itself and forms two membranes. So just remember that the pleura are going to be the two membranes when we are going to speak, but this is actually a single membrane folding over itself. Okay, so this is going to be the condition. So as you learn in your academics, you will learn it as two membranes. So these two membranes are none other than the outer one, which is being called as the parietal pleural membrane, and the inner one is being called as the visceral pleural membrane. Okay, so these are the two things that you have to see. Why am I introducing you with the chest wall and the membranes? You will understand when I'm going to explain you regarding the what we call is mechanisms of, that is, inhalation and exhalation. Okay, so now let me take up the trachea once again. So yesterday we have seen that trachea is being kept opened by the tracheal rings, which are the incomplete rings which are being present. Okay, and this makes your trachea keep open for letting the air in and letting the air out. Later this is going to actually branch out, and it gives two of these branches, which we regarded them as a primary bronchus. Okay, and this primary bronchus is going to be entering into your lungs. Okay, these are your lungs which have been present. Now I'm not considering about the lobes, but you remember that there are three lobes in your right lung, as well as there are two lobes in the left lung. Okay, so who are outside, where are these present, is in the thoracic cavity, and you know that you are going to have these chest wall made up of your 10 pairs, there is 12 pairs of the ribs, where two of them are not actually coming together to join up with the sternum. Okay, so we have drawn these, so this is your 10th one. So we are having this particular rib cage here. So let me draw this cross section of the ribs. Okay, so did I draw? Yeah. So I need one more here. So this is here. And you all know, well aware, yesterday we are introduced to it, that the muscle which is present in between the ribs is called as intercostal muscles, where you have the external intercostal muscle and the internal intercostal muscles. So this is the external intercostal muscles, and these are the internal costal muscles which have been present. Okay. So remember, as I told you, that there are two membranes over the lung. So remember, children, just below your rib cage, there is a dome-shaped muscle, and this muscle is being called as what? It's being called as your diaphragm. Diaphragm. And coming on to the membranes over this particular lungs, there is an outer layer which is actually in very much contact with the costal muscles and the chest wall. Okay, it is very much in, as well as it is very much in contact with your diaphragm also, the superior side of the diaphragm. See, why am I drawing it as a wave? Because you should be able to discriminate between these, or distinguish between the outer layer of the lung, that is going to be your, what you call is a parietal layer, which is in very much contact with the chest wall, that is a rib cage. Okay, and it is running along with the structure like this trachea, the bronchus, and they're running here. This is going to be the external layer, that is going to be your what we call as a parietal pleural membrane. This parietal pleural membrane is in very much contact with the chest wall. So this is your outermost layer. This is a parietal pleural membrane. Okay, and where is the internal one is, let me take another structure for this. So this is your internal pleural membrane, which we regard as the visceral layer, which is very much in contact with the surface of your lung here. So this is going to be the visceral layer. This is going to be your visceral layer. So visceral layer is in very much contact with the lung surface. This is your visceral layer. So parietal layer is in very much contact. So it's going to be in contact with your chest wall. Okay, it is inseparable, and visceral layer is in contact with your lungs. Okay, lungs. Children, just remember that there is a fluid in between these two particular layers here, pleural membranes here, and this fluid is none other than the serous fluid, and we call this serous fluid as the pleural fluid. And another thing to remember here is, children, as you can see that there is space between these particular parietal as well as a visceral layer. Okay, but imagine, remember that there is no such space between both of these parietal and visceral, because it's been filled with the pleural fluid, and there is a specific condition here which is being called as, there is a what you call is a negative pressure here, the negative pressure built up in between, that is in the pleural space. So let me make a star mark and write it for you, that there is there is negative pressure, negative pressure built up built up in the pleural space, pleural space. Okay, due to which due to which the two pleural membranes two pleural membranes stick with each other. They are going to stick with each other. This point is very, very important. Okay, so now as you're seeing the space between here, This is a pleural space, but actually it doesn't exist. Why? Because there is a negative pressure when compared to that of the pressure present outside the body, that is atmospheric pressure. Okay, this is a negative pressure and they are being filled up with the pleural membrane. So there is pleural fluid which is making them stick with each other. So this sticking is very important. See, so as they both are sticking with each other, children, what is the condition is going to happen is, as your rib cage is going to move, who is attached to the rib cage? The parietal layer. So the parietal layer moves with the rib cage. Okay, but who is stuck with this particular parietal layer? Visceral layer. So as the rib cage is going to move, who is going to move? The parietal layer. As a parietal layer moves, who moves along with him? It's going to be with it. It is going to be the visceral layer. So as a visceral layer moves, who is going to move along? The lungs are going to move along. This is very important for you all to remember. Okay, so you all know that. Now I'll be writing it in a what you call is a schematic representation. Just see that the rib cage is attached with what is your pleural, that is sorry, let me yeah, that is going to be not the pleural, but it is going to be the parietal membrane, right? So the parietal pleural membrane is fixed with it. These both are fixed, and along with the parietal, who is fixed? Visceral layer is fixed. Okay, and with visceral, who is being fixed? The lung surface is being fixed. So see now, if the rib cage moves, who he is going to pull away, drag the parietal layer. If the parietal is going to move, it is going to drag the visceral layer, and the visceral layer is going to drag whom? The lung here. So now what is happening is, as if there is going to be change in the movement of the rib, there should be ultimately the movement till the lung position, right? So this is going to happen. So now let me actually tell you that, let me come back to the back page here. So remember that your atmospheric pressure, actually what happens is, during the inhalation process, what happens is, so let me write it for you. So for instance, if you're going to look at the first process of mechanism is going to be the inhalation process. During inhalation, what is happening is, the first thing is your external intercostal muscles, what happens is, these muscles are going to actually contract. Okay, so when they're contracting, what happens is, your ribs are moved. Okay, the ribs are moved where? Out. Okay, and towards the up. Okay, so up and out. So when you're inhaling, as the external intercostal muscles are contracting, the ribs move out and up, but ribs are being fixed with whom? Parietal layer, the visceral layer, and the visceral layer will be dragging the lungs. So now what happens is, the volume here of the lungs, volume within the lungs is going to be increased. Isn't it? Because everything is being moved, children. Who is moved? Ribs are moving out, parietal layer is moved up, out, as well as the visceral layer is moving out. And you can even see that the volume of the lungs are being pulled. So as the volume of the lungs is going to increase, what happens is, according to the Boyle's law, we all of us know that if you're going to increase the volume, what happens is, the pressure within the lungs has to decrease, right? This is what we are going to learn. The volume is inversely proportional to the pressure. So now what is happening is, as the volume of the lungs is increasing, the pressure of the air within has to decrease now. So now what happens is, it decreases when compared to that of the atmospheric air pressure. See now, if I'm going to draw once again my lungs here, okay, these are the lungs that we are seeing. Okay, so let me draw here. The atmospheric pressure is going to be 760 mm of your Hg. As your volume of the lungs has increased, so they are increasing till here. Okay, if they are increasing now, what is going to happen is, the pressure within the lungs has to decrease. Okay, the pressure decreases and the volume has increased here. The volume increase, the pressure decrease. How much did it decrease? It is it has decreased to 758 of Hg. So there is a difference of how much? 2 of Hg of the difference is being seen in the pressure that is being developed inside the lungs now. So since there is a gradient or there is a difference between the pressure of the outside atmospheric pressure and the pressure inside the lungs, now what happens is, since there is a gradient developed, we all know that the gradients will be withdrawn only when the pressures are going to be equalized. Okay, the pressures have to be equalized. So now what happens is, in order to equalize the pressure, the from air from the higher gradient has to move into the lower gradient. Okay, so who is having the higher gradient here? Atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure. And who is less? Inside the lungs. Inside the lungs, the pressure is come less. So now what happens is, the air now has to move from a higher gradient to the lower gradient. So it has to move into lungs here. So this is a mechanism that is happening during the inhalation process, which is involving the rule which is being called as a Boyle's law, which gives us an idea that when there is an increase in the volume, there is going to be decrease in the pressure, and due to this difference in the gradients, the equalizing has to happen, equal has to be maintained out and in, due to which the air rushes from outside to the inside. Okay, did you understand it now? So the next one that we are going to see is going to be the exhalation. See children, inhalation is going to involve in an active muscle contraction. Okay, who is contracting now? It's going to be, who all have contracted in the inhalation now is, one is going to be here. What has contracted? External intercostal muscles have contracted. Along with that, we can even see that the diaphragm is also going to contract. Diaphragm is also going to contract. See children, when the diaphragm is going to contract, it is going to become flat. Initially, it is, how is the what you call is a diaphragm? It is dome shaped. But now, when it is going to contract, what happens is, if these are your lungs, okay, if these are your lungs, so now what happens is, the diaphragm becomes flat. When it is becoming flat, earlier it was dome shaped, now it has become flat. Now what is it doing is, it is applying pressure weight on the abdominal contents, right, your intestine. So your intestine will be pulled out, right? Your abdomen is going to be, what you call is being pushed, right? So as it is being pushed, now what happens, your stomach is going to raise out. So during inhalation, your stomach is raising out just because the abdomen is being pulled down. By whom? Pushed down, not pulled, pushed down by the application of the pressure by this particular diaphragm which has contracted. So these are all the changes happening in the inhalation. But now what is happening in the exhalation process is, just it is going to be a recoil. There is no active thing that is involved during the exhalation process. Inhalation में muscle contraction active है, लेकिन exhalation क्या है? is just a recoil. किसका recoil है? आपका डायाफ्राम जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया है वो खुद ब खुद रिकॉइल होगा, तो क्या होगा? तो वो रिलैक्स हो जाता है, फिर से वो बनेगा क्या? डोम शेप्ड बन जाता है. ओके, ये वाला एक चल रहा है. और नेक्स्ट वाला देखिए चिल्ड्रन, आपकी जो एक्सटर्नल इंटरकॉस्टल मसल्स थे, वो भी आपके कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हुए थे इनहेलेशन में, तो ये भी यहाँ पर हो जाते हैं क्या? रिलैक्स हो जाते हैं, जिसकी वजह से क्या होगा? द chest wall is going to be pulled back. So that is being pulled back, comes back. Okay, the chest wall is coming back. So who is going to come back? The pleural membranes come back, and your lung is also going to recoil, come back. Is nothing but this is going to decrease the volume of your lungs. So आपका lungs का volume जो है, that is going to get reduced, children. So according to the Boyle's law, you know that they are contrary, they are going to be inversely proportional. So now what happens is, as the volume increased, the what happens is that is your volume has decreased now. Okay, as the volume is going to decrease, the pressure is going to increase. So since there is increase in the pressure, now what happens, the air has to rush from an area where the pressure is high to the pressure low. So where is the pressure low? Outside, that is atmospheric pressure. Where is the pressure more here? In the lungs. So from the, now what happens is the air rushes from the lungs to out. Okay, so this is going to be the way how we are going to exhale. So what is happening in the exhalation process is diaphragm as well as the external intercostal muscles are going to recoil without any active participation of the muscles here, but they just relax and they decrease the volume of the lungs, thereby increasing the pressure by which the air is going to rush out. Okay, this is important for you all to remember. So just remember that your membranes actually are going to have a potential space, but that potential space doesn't exist because of the negative pressure which is in between the pleural membranes, due to which they stick with each other. And the pressure inside the lungs, the pressure inside the lungs is being called as the intrapulmonary pressure. You know that during the inhalation process, what is the intrapulmonary pressure? It is 758 mm of mercury. This you need to understand that. Just change in the pressure has brought the inhalation exhalation. But because of what the pressures were increasing and decreasing was just because of the increase in the volume of the lungs and decrease in the volume of lungs. Why was this happening? Because there was contraction of the muscles in the external intercostal muscles as well as the diaphragm. So the external intercostal muscles are pulling your ribs towards up and out, and your belly is being thrown out just because of the contraction of your what we call is your diaphragm. Okay, now what I'll do is, children, I will share you a few of these slides that I have got for you. This will be giving you a more specific idea regarding this. Okay, so let me show you these particular pleural membranes first. As you can see, children, I'll just see, you can see this dark blue color things that you can see is the cross section of your rib cage, but these light blue colored where he has indicated this pointer is the one which is very much attached to the rib cage, that is a parietal pleural membrane. And the one that is light blue color fixed to the surface of the lungs is going to be the what you call is visceral pleural membrane. The black colored thing that you can see is going to be the potential space, but that doesn't exist because of the negative pressure. They actually stick with each other. Okay, this is important, children, to be remembered. Okay, so your parietal membrane is fixed to the chest wall as well as to the your superior surface of the what we call is diaphragm. Okay, this has to be remembered. So we have parietal, visceral layers, and we have the pleural cavity, which is filled with the pleural fluid. Okay, these are the ones to be remembered. And the next thing that I have got for you is going to be the slide of the inhalation and exhalation process, where you can see this procedure. See now, during the inhalation process, children, what is happening is the air is rushing through the conducting airways. Why are they moving? Because the pressure inside has got decreased. So what is the first procedure? The external intercostal muscles, the diaphragm has contracted. So now what happens is the ribs are moving up and out, and the lungs have been also moving out, due to which the volume is increasing and the pressure is decreasing. So the lungs are inflated with the air, and the recoil happens where this is a passive process, not an active process. As I told you, inhalation involves active contraction. This is just a recoil, so we call it as a passive process, where the diaphragm goes back, recoils, and the muscles are also going to recoil, and the lung is going to get deflated because of the volume getting decreased, the pressure getting increased. So the air is going to rush out of the trachea. Okay, so this is the one which I needed to explain you in this process, children. I hope you all have understood the inhalation exhalation process and the pleural membranes, how they are playing a major role, because you know that 75% of this as well as what you call is, as I told you yesterday, that excuse me, that I told you that the 75% of the respiratory efficiency is being brought up by the contraction of your diaphragm, and the rib cage is going to be the 25% of the efficiency. Effort is being put by it. So these contractions of the muscles are the ones which are making your lungs to increase, that is inflate and deflate. So these are the mechanisms that you need to understand. I hope you all have understood this video and my explanation and the slides you understood. Okay, I hope if you have understood, please hit the like button and subscribe my channel. Please hit the like buttons and try to comment in the comment section how you like the video, and try to please share this video with many of the children. This will be helping them for their forthcoming examinations also. Okay, thank you all. Thank you.